during the Renaissance, when they became well known to be much older. Their supposed author, a mythical figure called Hermes Trismegistus, was thought to be a contemporary of Moses. The Hermetic philosophy was regarded as an ancient theology, parallel to the revealed wisdom of the Bible, supporting biblical revelation and culminating in the philosophy of Plato, Plotinus, and others in the Platonic tradition. This new translation is the only English version based on reliable texts of the Greek Corpus Hermeticum and the Latin Asclepius. Professor Copenhaver's introduction and notes provide a context of interpretation taking into account recent advances in Hermetic scholarship, making this accessible edition an indispensable resource to scholars in ancient philosophy and religion, early Christianity, Renaissance literature and history, the history of science, and the occultist tradition in which the Hermetica have become canonical texts. 1. Discourse of Hermes Trismegistus and Poimandres. Once, when thought came to me of the things that are, and my thinking soared high, and my bodily senses were restrained, like someone heavy with sleep from too much eating or toil of the body, an enormous being completely unbounded in size seemed to appear to me, and call my name, and say to me, "What do you want to hear and see? What do you want to learn and know from your understanding?" "Who are you?" I asked. "I am Poimandres," he said, "mind of sovereignty. I know what you want, and I am with you everywhere." I said, "I wish to learn about the things that are, to understand their nature and to know God. How much I want to hear," I said. Then he said to me, "Keep in mind all that you wish to learn, and I will teach you." Saying this, he changed his appearance, and in an instant everything was immediately opened to me. I saw an endless vision in which everything became light, clear, and joyful, and in seeing the vision I came to love it. After a little while, darkness arose separately and descended, fearful and gloomy, coiling sinuously so that it looked to me like a snake. Then the darkness changed into something of a watery nature, indescribably agitated and smoking like a fire. It produced an unspeakable wailing roar. Then an inarticulate cry, like the voice of fire, came forth from it. But from the light, a holy word mounted upon the watery nature, and untempered fire leapt up from the watery nature to the height above. The fire was nimble and piercing and active as well, and because the air was light, it followed after spirit and rose up to the fire away from earth and water, so that it seemed suspended from the fire. Earth and water stayed behind, mixed with one another, so that earth could not be distinguished from water, but they were stirred to hear by the spiritual word that moved upon them. Poimandres said to me, "Have you understood what this vision means?" "I shall come to know," said I. "I am the light you saw, mind, your God," he said, "who existed before the watery nature that appeared out of darkness. The light-giving word who comes from mind is the Son of God." "Go on," I said. "This is what you must know, that in you which sees and hears is the word of the Lord, but your mind is God the Father. They are not divided from one another, for their union is life." "Thank you," I said. "Understand the light then, and recognize it." After he said this, he looked me in the face for such a long time that I trembled at his appearance. But when he raised his head, I saw in my mind the light of powers beyond number, and a boundless cosmos that had come to be. The fire, encompassed by great power and subdued, kept its place fixed. In the vision I had, because of the discourse of Poimandres, These were my thoughts. Since I was terrified, out of my wits, he spoke to me again. In your mind, you have seen the archetypal form, the pre-principle that exists before a beginning without end. This was what Poimandres said to me. The elements of nature, whence have they arisen? I asked. And he answered, from the counsel of God, which, having taken in the word, and having seen the beautiful cosmos, imitated it, having become a cosmos through its own elements and its progeny of souls. The mind, who is God, being androgyne and existing as life and light, by speaking gave birth to a second mind, a craftsman, who, as God of fire and spirit, crafted 7 governors. They encompass the sensible world in circles, and their government is called fate. From the elements that weigh downwards, the word of God leapt straight up to the pure craftwork of nature, and united with the craftsman mind, for the word was of the same substance. The weighty elements of nature were left behind, bereft of reason, so as to be mere matter. The craftsman mind, together with the word, encompassing the circles and whirling them about with a rush, turned his craftworks about, letting them turn from an endless beginning to a limitless end, for it starts where it stops. Revolving as mind wished them to, the circles brought forth from the weighty elements living things without reason, for they no longer kept the word with them. And the air brought forth winged things, the water things that swim. Earth and water had been separated from one another as mind wished, and earth brought forth from herself the living things that she held within, 4-footed beasts and crawling things, wild animals and tame. Mind, the father of all who is life and light, gave birth to a man like himself, whom he loved as his own child. The man was most fair. He had the Father's image, and God, who was really in love with his own form, bestowed on him all his craftworks. And after the man had observed what the craftsman had created with the Father's help, he also wished to make some craftwork, and the Father agreed to this. Entering the craftsman's sphere, where he was to have all authority, the man observed his brother's craftworks. The governors loved the man, and each gave a share of his own order. Learning well their essence and sharing in their nature, the man wished to break through the circumference of the circles to observe the rule of the one given power over the fire. Having all authority over the cosmos of mortals and unreasoning animals, the man broke through the vault and stooped to look through the cosmic framework, thus displaying to lower nature the fair form of God. Nature smiled for love when she saw him whose fairness brings no surfeit, and who holds in himself all the energy of the governors and the form of God. For in the water she saw the shape of the man's fairest form, and upon the earth its shadow. When the man saw in the water the form like himself, as it was in nature, he loved it, and wished to inhabit it. Wish and action came in the same moment, and he inhabited the unreasoning form. Nature took hold of her beloved, hugged him all about, and embraced him, for they were lovers. Because of this, unlike any other living thing on earth, mankind is twofold, in the body mortal, but immortal in the essential man. Even though he is immortal and has authority over all things, mankind is affected by mortality because he is subject to fate. Thus, although man is above the cosmic framework, he became a slave within it. He is androgyne because he comes from an androgyne father,
You know what? I'm not
and
gonna
he
play
never
for you.
sleeps because he comes from one who is sleepless. Yet love and sleep are his masters. And after this, O my mind, I love the word also. Poimandres said, "This is the mystery that has been kept hidden until this very day. When nature made love with the man, she bore a wonder most wondrous. In him he had the nature of the cosmic framework of the seven, who are made of fire and spirit, as I told you, and without delay nature at once gave birth to 7 men, androgyne and exalted, whose natures were like those of the 7 governors. And after this, O Poimandres, now I have come into a great longing, and I yearn to hear, so do not digress. And Poimandres said, Be silent. I have not yet unfolded to you the first discourse. As you see, I am silent, said I. As I said then, the birth of the 7 was as follows. Earth was the female, water did the fertilizing, fire was the maturing force. Nature took spirit from the ether and brought forth bodies in the shape of the man. From life and light, the man became soul and mind. From life came soul, from light came mind, and all things in the cosmos of the senses remained thus until the cycle ended and kinds of things began to be. Hear the rest, the word you yearn to hear. When the cycle was completed, the bond among all things was sundered by the counsel of God. All living things which had been androgyne were sundered into 2 parts, humans along with them, and part of them became male, part likewise female. But God immediately spoke a holy speech. Increase in increasing, and multiply in multitude, all you creatures and craftworks, and let him who is mindful recognize that he is immortal, that desire is the cause of death, and let him recognize all that exists. After God said this, Providence, through fate and through the cosmic framework, caused acts of intercourse and set in train acts of birth. And all things were multiplied according to kind.
You really run away from it to be one?
Attained the chosen good. But the one who loved the body that came from the error of desire goes on in darkness, errant, suffering sensibly the effects of death. Those who lack knowledge, what great wrong have they done, I asked, that they should be deprived of immortality? You behave like a person who has not given thought to what he has heard. Did I not tell you to think? I am thinking. I remember, and I am grateful as well. If you have understood, tell me, why do they deserve death who are in death? Because what first gives rise to each person's body is the hateful darkness, from which comes the watery nature, from which the body was constituted in the sensible cosmos, from which death drinks. Truly you have understood. But why is it that he who has understood himself advances toward God, as God's discourse has it? Because, I said, the Father of all things was constituted of light and life, and from him the man came to be. You say your speech well. Life and light are God and Father, from whom the man came to be. So if you learn that you are from light and life, and that you happen to come from them, you shall advance to life once again. This is what Poimandres said. But tell me again, I asked, how shall I advance to life, O my mind? For God says, let the person who is mindful recognize himself. All people have mind, do they not? Hold your tongue, fellow. Enough talk. I myself, the mind, am present to the blessed and good and pure and merciful, to the reverent, and my presence becomes a help. They quickly recognize everything, and they propitiate the Father lovingly and give thanks, praising and singing hymns affectionately and in the order appropriate to him. Before giving up the body to its proper death, they loathe the senses, for they see their effects. Or rather, I, the mind, will not permit the effects of the body to strike and work their results on them. As gatekeeper, I will refuse entry to the evil and shameful effects, cutting off the anxieties that come from them. But from these I remain distant. The thoughtless and evil and wicked and envious and greedy and violent and irreverent, giving way to the avenging demon who wounds the evil person, assailing him sensibly with the piercing fire, and thus arming him the better for lawless deeds, so that greater vengeance may befall him. Such a person does not cease longing after insatiable appetites, struggling in the darkness without satisfaction. This tortures him and makes the fire grow upon him all the more. You have taught me all things well, O mind, just as I wanted. But tell me again about the way up. Tell me how it happens. To this, Poimandres said, first, in releasing the material body, you give the body itself over to alteration, and the form that you used to have vanishes. To the demon you give over your temperament, now inactive. The body's senses rise up and flow back to their particular sources, becoming separate parts and mingling again with the energies. And feeling and longing go on toward irrational nature. Thence the human being rushes up through the cosmic framework, at the first zone surrendering the energy of increase and decrease, at the second evil machination, a device now inactive, at the third the illusion of longing, now inactive, at the fourth the ruler's arrogance, now freed of excess, at the fifth unholy presumption and daring recklessness, at the sixth the evil impulses that come from wealth, now inactive, and at the seventh zone the deceit that lies in ambush. And then, stripped of the effects of the cosmic framework, the human enters the region of the Ogdod. He has his own proper power, and along with the blessed he hymns the Father. Those present there rejoice together in his presence, and having become like his companions, he also hears certain powers that exist beyond the Ogdoaic region, and hymn God with sweet voice. They rise up to the Father in order, and surrender themselves to the powers, and, having become powers, they enter into God. This is the final good for those who have received knowledge, to be made God. Why do you still delay? Having learned all this, should you not become guide to the worthy, so that through you the human race might be saved by God? As he was saying this to me, Poimandres joined with the powers. Then he sent me forth, empowered and instructed on the nature of the universe and on the supreme vision, after I had given thanks to the Father of all and praised him. And I began proclaiming to mankind the beauty of reverence and knowledge. People, earthborn men, you who have surrendered yourselves to drunkenness and sleep and ignorance of God, make yourselves sober and end your drunken sickness, for you are bewitched in unreasoning sleep. When they heard, they gathered round with one accord, and I said, why have you surrendered yourselves to death, earthborn men, since you have the right to share in immortality? You who have journeyed with error, who have partnered with ignorance, think again. Escape the shadowy light, leave corruption behind, and take a share in immortality. Some of them who had surrendered themselves to the way of death resumed their mocking and withdrew, while those who desired to be taught cast themselves at my feet. Having made them rise, I became guide to my race, teaching them the words, how to be saved and in what manner. And I sowed the words of wisdom among them, and they were nourished from the ambrosial water. When evening came and the sun's light began to disappear entirely, I commanded them to give thanks to God, and when each completed the thanksgiving, he turned to his own bed. Within myself I recorded the kindness of Poimandres, and I was deeply happy, because I was filled with what I wished, For the sleep of my body became sobriety of soul. The closing of my eyes became true vision. My silence became pregnant with good. And the birthing of the word became a progeny of goods. This happened to me because I was receptive of mind, of poimandris, that is, the word of sovereignty. I have arrived, inspired with the divine breath of truth. Therefore I give praise to God the Father from my soul and with all my might. Holy is God, the Father of all. Holy is God whose counsel is done by his own powers. Holy is God who wishes to be known and is known by his own people. Holy are you who by the word have constituted all things that are. Holy are you from whom all nature was born as image. Holy are you of whom nature has not made a like figure. Holy are you who are stronger than every power. Holy are you who surpass every excellence. Holy are you, mightier than praises. You whom we address in silence, the unspeakable, the unsayable, accept pure speech offerings from a heart and soul that reach up to you. Grant my request not to fail in the knowledge that befits our essence. Give me power, and with this gift I shall enlighten those who are in ignorance, brothers of my race, but your sons. Thus I believe and I bear witness. I advance to life and light. Blessed are you, Father. He who is your man wishes to join you in the work of sanctification, since you have provided him all authority. 2. Is it not true, Asclepius, that everything moved is moved in something and by something? Certainly. But isn't it necessary for that in which something is moved to be larger than the moved? It is necessary. So then the mover is stronger than the moved. Stronger indeed. And that in which something is moved must necessarily have a nature contrary to that of the moved? Yes, entirely so. This cosmos is large then, and no body is larger. Agreed. And is it densely packed? For it has been filled with many other large bodies, or rather, with all the bodies that exist. So it is. But is the cosmos a body? A body, yes. And a moved body? Certainly. The place in which it moves, then, how large must it be? And what is its nature? Is it not larger by far so as to sustain continuity of motion and not hold back its movement, lest the moved be crowded and confined? It must be something truly enormous, Trismegistus. What is its nature? It will be of a contrary nature, Asclepius, no? But the nature contrary to body is the incorporeal. Agreed. Place is incorporeal then, but the incorporeal is either divine or else it is God. By divine, I mean here the unbegotten, not the begotten. If it is divine, it is something essential, but if it is God, it comes to be even without essence. Otherwise, it is something intelligible, and this is why. For us, God is the foremost intelligible entity, but not so for God himself. What is intelligible falls within the awareness of one who thinks of it. Thus, for himself, God is not intelligible, because he is not something distinct from the object of his thought. In other words, so as to be an object of thought for himself. For us, however, he is something distinct. Hence, he is an object of thought for us. But if place is intelligible, it is intelligible not as God, but as place. And if it were intelligible as God, it would be regarded so not as place, but as energy capable of containing. Yet everything moved is moved not in something moved, but in something at rest. And the mover is also at rest, unable to be moved conjointly. How then, O Trismegistus, are the things of this world moved conjointly with their movers. You have said that the planetary spheres are moved by the spheres of the fixed. This motion, Asclepius, is not conjoint but opposed, for the spheres are not moved in the same way. They move contrary to one another, and the contrariety keeps the motion balanced through opposition. Resistance is the stilling of motion. Since the planetary spheres are moved contrarily to the fixed, by a contrary encounter with them, they are moved because of their balance in relation to the contrariety itself. It cannot be otherwise. For example, those bears that you see neither setting nor rising but turning about the same point, do you think they are moved or at rest? They are moved, Trismegistus. What sort of motion, Asclepius? Motion revolving about the same points. Revolution is the same thing as motion about the same point that is held in place by immobility. Going around it prevents going beyond it. But when the going beyond is prevented, there is resistance to the going around, and thus the contrary motion remains constant, stabilized by the contrariety. I will give you an example here on Earth, one that your eyes can see. As they swim, observe mortal living things, those like a human, I mean. When the water rushes by, the resistance of feet and hands becomes an immobility, so that the person is not swept downstream with the water. A clear example, Trismegistus. Thus, all motion is moved in immobility and by immobility. And it happens that the motion of the cosmos and of every living thing made of matter is produced not by things outside the body, but by those within it acting upon the outside, by intelligible entities, either soul or spirit or something else incorporeal. For body does not move in souled body, nor does it move any body at all, not even the soulless. How do you mean this, Trismegistus? Are they not bodies that move sticks and stones and all the other soulless things? By no means, Asclepius. Not the body itself, but what is within the body that moves the soulless thing is what moves them both. The body that bears as well as the body that is born. Hence the soulless will not move the soulless. And so you see how the soul is overloaded when it bears two bodies by itself. And so it is clear that things moved are moved in something and by something. Must things that are moved be moved in emptiness, Trismegistus? Hold your tongue, Asclepius. Not one of the things that are is empty by reason of their substantiality. For a being could not be a being if it were not full of substance. The subsistent can never become empty. Are not some things empty, Trismegistus, such as a pail, or a pot, or a vat, or other such things? Ah, what a great mistake, Asclepius. Would you consider empty the things that are entirely and completely full? What do you mean, Trismegistus? Air is a body, no? Yes, it is a body. But does not this body pervade everything that exists, and fill them all by pervading them? And a body is a mixture constituted of the four elements, is it not? So all those things that you call empty are full of air. But if they are full of air, they are also full of the four bodies. And so it turns out that a contrary account comes to light, that the things you call full are all empty of air, since they are crowded with these other bodies and have no place to take in the air. Therefore, the things you call empty must be named hollow rather than empty, for in their substance they are full of air and spirit. Your reasoning is irrefutable, Trismegistus. So what have we said of the place in which the universe is moved? That it is incorporeal, Asclepius. What is the incorporeal, then? Mind as a whole, wholly enclosing itself, free of all body, unerring, unaffected, untouched, at rest in itself. capable of containing all things and preserving all that exists. And its rays, as it were, are the good, the truth, the archetype of spirit, the archetype of soul. What then is God? God is what does not subsist as any of these, since he is the cause of their being, for all of them and for each and every one of them that exists. And he has left nothing else remaining that is not being, for all things are those that come to be from things that are, not from those that are not. Things that are not do not have a nature that enables them to come to be. Their nature is such that they cannot come to be anything. Things that are, on the other hand, do not have a nature that prevents them from ever existing. What do you mean by what never exists? God is not mind, but he is the cause of mind's being. He is not spirit, but the cause of spirit's being. And he is not light, but the cause of light's being. Hence, one must show God reverence with those two names assigned to him alone and to no other. Except God alone, none of the other beings called gods, nor any human, nor any demon, can be good in any degree. That good is he alone, and none other. All others are incapable of containing the nature of the good, because they are body and soul, and have no place that can contain the good. For the magnitude of the good is as great as the substance of all beings, corporeal and incorporeal, sensible and intelligible. This is the good. This is God. You should not say that anything else is good, or you will speak profanely. Nor should you ever call God anything but the good, since this too would be profane. All use the word good in speaking, of course, but not all understand what it can mean. For this reason, God is not understood by all. In their ignorance, they apply the name good to the gods and to certain humans, even though these beings are never able to be good or to become so. The good is what is inalienable and inseparable from God, since it is God himself. All other immortal gods are given the name good as an honor, but God is the good by nature, not because of honor. God has one nature, the good. In God and the good together there is but one kind, from which come all other kinds. The good is what gives everything and receives nothing. God gives everything and receives nothing. Therefore God is the good, and the good is God. God's other name is Father, because he is capable of making all things. Making is characteristic of a father. Prudent people therefore regard the making of children as a duty in life to be taken most seriously and greatly revered. And should any human being pass away childless, they see it as the worst misfortune and irreverence. After death, such a person suffers retribution from demons. This is his punishment. The soul of the childless one is sentenced to a body that has neither a man's nature nor a woman's, a thing accursed under the sun. Most assuredly then, Asclepius, you should never congratulate a childless person. On the contrary, show pity for his calamity, knowing what punishment awaits him. This is the content and the extent of what should be told to you, Asclepius, by way of introduction to the nature of all things. 3. A sacred discourse of Hermes. God is the glory of all things, as also are the divine and the divine nature. God, as well as mind and nature and matter, is the beginning of all things that are, since he is wisdom meant to show them forth. The divine is also a beginning, and it is nature and energy, and necessity and completion and renewal. In the deep there was boundless darkness and water and fine, intelligent spirit, all existing by divine power in chaos. Then a holy light was sent forth, and elements solidified out of liquid essence. And all the gods divide the parts of germinal nature. While all was unlimited and unformed, light elements were set apart to the heights, and the heavy were grounded in the moist sand, the whole of them delimited by fire and raised aloft to be carried by spirit. The heavens appeared in 7 circles. The gods became visible in the shapes of the stars and all their constellations, and the arrangement of this lighter substance corresponded to the gods contained in it. The periphery rotated in the air, carried in a circular course by divine spirit. Through his own power, each god sent forth what was assigned to him. And the beasts came to be, 4-footed, crawling, water-dwelling, winged, and every germinating seed and grass and every flowering plant. Within them they had the seed of rebirth. The gods sowed the generations of humans to know the works of God, to be a working witness to nature, to increase the number of mankind, to master all things under heaven, to discern the things that are good, to increase by increasing, and multiply by multiplying. And through the wonder-working course of the cycling gods, they created every soul incarnate to contemplate heaven, the course of the heavenly gods, the works of God, and the working of nature, to examine things that are good, to know divine power, to know the whirling changes of fair and foul, and to discover every means of working skillfully with things that are good. For them, this is the beginning of the virtuous life and of wise thinking as far as the course of the cycling gods destines it. And it is also the beginning of their release to what will remain of them after they have left great monuments on earth in works of industry. In the fame of seasons they will become dim, and from every birth of ensouled flesh, from the sowing of crops, and from every work of industry, what is diminished will be renewed by necessity, and by the renewal that comes from the gods, and by the course of nature's measured cycle. For the divine is the entire combination of cosmic influence renewed by nature, and nature has been established in the divine. 4. A discourse of Hermes to Tat, the mixing bowl or the monad. Since the craftsman made the whole cosmos by reasoned speech, not by hand, you should conceive of him as present, as always existing, as having made all things, as the one and only, and as having crafted by his own will the things that are. For this is his body, neither tangible nor visible, nor measurable nor dimensional, nor like any other body. It is not fire, nor water, nor air, nor spirit, yet all things come from it. Because he is good, it was not for himself alone that he wished to make this offering, and to adorn the earth. So he sent the man below, an adornment of the divine body, mortal life from life immortal. And if the cosmos prevailed over living things as something ever living, the man prevailed even over the cosmos through reason and mind. The man became a spectator of God's work. He looked at it in astonishment and recognized its maker. God shared reason among all people, O Tat, but not mind, though he begrudged it to none. Grudging envy comes not from on high, it forms below in the souls of people who do not possess mind. For what reason then did God not share mind with all of them, my father? He wanted it put between souls, my child, as a prize for them to contest. And where did he put it? He filled a great mixing bowl with it and sent it below, appointing a herald whom he commanded to make the following proclamation to human hearts. Immerse yourself in the mixing bowl if your heart has the strength, if it believes you will rise up again to the one who sent the mixing bowl below, if it recognizes the purpose of your coming to be. All those who heeded the proclamation and immersed themselves in mind participated in knowledge and became perfect people because they received mind. But those who missed the point of the proclamation are people of reason because they did not receive the gift of mind as well and do not know the purpose or the agents of their coming to be. These people have sensations much like those of unreasoning animals, and since their temperament is willful and angry, they feel no awe of things that deserve to be admired. They divert their attention to the pleasures and appetites of their bodies, and they believe that mankind came to be for such purposes. But those who participate in the gift that comes from God, outta, are immortal rather than mortal if one compares their deeds. For in a mind of their own they have comprehended all, things on earth, things in heaven, and even what lies beyond heaven. Having raised themselves so far, they have seen the good, and having seen it, they have come to regard the wasting of time here below as a calamity. They have scorned every corporeal and incorporeal thing, and they hasten toward the one and only. This, Tat, is the way to learn about mind, to resolve perplexities in divinity, and to understand God. For the mixing bowl is divine. I too wish to be immersed, my father. Unless you first hate your body, my child, you cannot love yourself. But when you have loved yourself, you will possess mind. And if you have mind, you will also have a share in the way to learn. What do you mean by this, Father? My child, it is impossible to be engaged in both realms, the mortal and the divine. Since there are two kinds of entities, corporeal and incorporeal, corresponding to mortal and divine, one is left to choose one or the other if choice is desired. One cannot have both together when one is left to choose, but lessening the one reveals the activity of the other. Choosing the stronger, then, not only has splendid consequences for the one who chooses, in that it makes the human into a god, but it also shows reverence toward God. On the other hand, choosing the lesser has been mankind's destruction, though it was no offense to God, with this single reservation. Just as processions passing by in public cannot achieve anything of themselves, though they can be a hindrance to others, in the same way these people are only parading through the cosmos, led astray by pleasures of the body. Since this is so, Tat, what proceeds from God has been and will be available to us. May what comes from us be suited to it and not deficient, and the evils for which we are responsible, who choose them instead of good things, are no responsibility of God's. Do you see how many bodies we must pass through, my child? How many troops of demons, cosmic connections, and stellar circuits in order to hasten toward the one and only? For the good is untraversable, infinite and unending. It is also without beginning, but to us it seems to have a beginning, our knowledge of it. Thus knowledge is not a beginning of the good, but it furnishes us the beginning of the good that will be known. So let us seize this beginning and travel with all speed, for the path is very crooked that leaves familiar things of the present to return to primordial things of old. Visible things delight us, but the invisible cause mistrust. Bad things are the more open to sight, but the good is invisible to what can be seen. For the good has neither shape nor outline. This is why it is like itself, but unlike all others, for the bodiless cannot be visible to body. This is the difference between like and unlike, and the deficiency in the unlike with respect to the like. The monad, because it is the beginning and root of all things, is in them all as root and beginning. Without a beginning there is nothing, and a beginning comes from nothing except itself if it is the beginning of other things. Because it is a beginning, then, the monad contains every number, is contained by none, and generates every number without being generated by any other number. But everything generated is imperfect and divisible, subject to increase and decrease. None of this happens to what is perfect, and what can be increased takes its increase from the monad, but it is defeated by its own weakness, no longer able to make room for the monad. Such then, Tat, is God's image, as best I have been able to sketch it for you. If your vision of it is sharp, and you understand it with the eyes of your heart, believe me, child, you shall discover the road that leads above, or rather, the image itself will show you the way. For the vision of it has a special property. It takes hold of those who have had the vision and draws them up, just as the magnet stone draws iron, so they say. 5. A discourse of Hermes to Tat, his son, that God is invisible and entirely visible. This discourse I shall also deliver to you in full, O Tat, lest you go uninitiated in the mysteries of the God who is greater than any name. You must understand how something that seems invisible to the multitude will become entirely visible to you. Actually, if it were not invisible, it would not always be. Everything seen has been begotten because at some point it came to be seen. But the invisible always is, and because it always is, it does not need to come to be seen. Also, while remaining invisible because it always is, it makes all other things visible. The very entity that makes visibility does not make itself visible. What begets is not itself begotten. What presents images of everything is not present to the imagination. For there is imagination only of things begotten. Coming to be is nothing but imagination. Clearly, the one who alone is unbegotten is also unimagined and invisible. But in presenting images of all things, he is seen through all of them and in all of them. He is seen especially by those whom he wished to see him. You then, Tat, my child, pray first to the Lord, the Father, the only, who is not one, but from whom the one comes. Ask him the grace to enable you to understand so great a God, to permit even one ray of his to illuminate your thinking. Only understanding, because it too is invisible, sees the invisible. And if you have the strength, Tat, your mind's eye will see it. For the Lord, who is ungrudging, is seen through the entire cosmos. Can you see understanding and hold it in your hands? Can you have a vision of the image of God? If what is in you is also invisible to you, how will God reveal his inner self to you through the eyes?
Basic.
If you want to see God, consider the sun, consider the circuit of the moon, consider the order of the stars. Who keeps this order? For every order is bounded in number and in place. The sun, the greatest god of those in heaven, to whom all heavenly gods submit as to a king and ruler, this sun, so very great, larger than earth and sea, allows stars smaller than him to circle above him. To whom does he defer, my child? Whom does he fear? Does not each of these stars in heaven make the same circuit or a similar one? Who determined the direction and the size of the circuit for each of them? Who owns this instrument, this bear, the one that turns around itself and carries the whole cosmos with it? Who sets limits to the sea? Who settled the earth in place? There is someone, Tat, who is maker and master of all this. Without someone to make them, neither place nor number nor measure could have been maintained. Everything that is an order has been made. Only something placeless and measureless can be not made. But even this does not lack a master, my child. Even if the unordered is deficient, that is, in that it does not retain the character of order, it is still subject to a master who has not yet imposed order on it. Would that you could grow wings and fly up into the air, lifted between earth and heaven to see the solid earth, the fluid sea, the streaming rivers, the pliant air, the piercing fire, the coursing stars, and heaven speeding on its axis about the same points. Oh, this is a most happy sight to see, my child, to have a vision of all these in a single instant, to see the motionless set in motion and the invisible made visible through the things that it makes. This is the order of the cosmos, and this is the cosmos of order. If you wish also to see the vision through mortal things on earth and in the deep, my child, consider how the human being is crafted in the womb. Examine the skill of the craftwork carefully and learn who it is that crafts this beautiful, godlike image of mankind. Who traced the line round the eyes? Who pierced the holes for nostrils and ears? Who opened up the mouth? Who stretched out the sinews and tied them down? Who made channels for the veins? Who hardened the bones? Who drew skin over the flesh? Who parted the fingers? Who flattened the bottoms of the feet? Who cut passages for the pores? Who stretched out the spleen? Who made the heart in the form of a pyramid? Who joined the ribs together? Who flattened the liver? Who hollowed out the lungs? Who made the belly spacious? Who set the most honored parts in relief to make them visible, but hid the shameful parts away? See how many skills have been applied to the same single material, how many labors within the compass of a single work, all of them exquisite things, all finely measured, yet all different. Who made them all? What sort of mother or what sort of father, if not the invisible God, who crafted them all by his own will? No one claims that a statue or a picture has been produced unless there is a sculptor or a painter. Has this craftwork been produced without a craftsman then? Oh, how full of blindness, how full of irreverence, how full of ignorance. Tat, my child, never deprive the craftworks of their craftsmen. Or rather, he is stronger even than a name used of God, so great is the Father of all. Surely it is he alone whose work it is to be a father. If you force me to say something still more daring, it is his essence to be pregnant with all things and to make them. As it is impossible for anything to be produced without a maker, so also is it impossible for this maker not to exist always, unless he is always making everything in heaven, in the air, on earth, in the deep, in every part of the cosmos, in every part of the universe, in what is and in what is not. For there is nothing in all the cosmos that he is not. He is himself the things that are, and those that are not. Those that are he has made visible. Those that are not he holds within him. This is the God who is greater than any name. This is the God invisible and entirely visible. This God, who is evident to the eyes, may be seen in the mind. He is bodiless and many-bodied, or rather, he is all-bodied. There is nothing that he is not, for he also is all that is. And this is why he has all names, because they are of one Father. And this is why he has no name, because he is Father of them all. Who may praise you, then, acting on your behalf or according to your purpose? And where shall I look to praise you? Above, below, within, without? For there is no direction about you, nor place, nor any other being. All is within you. All comes from you. You give everything and take nothing. For you have it all, and there is nothing that you do not have. When shall I sing a hymn to you? One cannot detect in you time or season. For what shall I sing the hymn? For what you have made, or what you have not made? For what you have made visible, or what you have kept hidden? And wherefore shall I sing the hymn to you? For being something that is part of me, or has a special property, or is something apart. For you are whatever I am. You are whatever I make. You are whatever I say. You are everything, and there is nothing else. What is not, you are as well. You are all that has come to be. You are what has not come to be. You are the mind who understands, the Father who makes his craft work, the God who acts, and the good who makes all things. The matter composed of the finest particles is air, but air is soul. Soul is mind, and mind is God. 6. That the good is in God alone and nowhere else. The good, Asclepius, is in nothing except in God alone, or rather, God himself is always the good. If this is so, the good must be the substance of all motion and generation, for nothing is abandoned by it. But this substance has an energy about it that stays at rest, that has no lack and no excess, that is perfectly complete, a source of supply, present in the beginning of all things. When I say that what supplies everything is good, I also mean that it is wholly and always good. Yet this good belongs to nothing else except to God alone. God lacks for nothing, to become evil in longing to possess it. Nothing that exists can be lost to him, to cause him grief in losing it, for grief is a part of vice. Nothing is stronger than God, to make an adversary of him, nor does he have a companion to give him injury. Nothing is more beautiful to cause desire in him. Nothing is unheeding of him, to make him angry, and nothing is wiser to make him jealous. Since none of these qualities belongs to the substance, what remains but the good alone? Just as none of these other qualities exists in such a substance, by the same token the good will be found in none of the other substances. All the other qualities exist in all things, in the small, in the large, in things taken one by one, and in the living thing itself that is larger than all of them and the most powerful. Since generation itself is subject to passion, things begotten are full of passions, but where there is passion, there is no good to be found, and where the good is, there is not a single passion. There is no night where it is day, and no day where it is night. Hence the good cannot exist in generation. It exists only in the unbegotten. Participation in all things has been given in matter. So also has participation in the good been given. This is how the cosmos is good, in that it also makes all things. Thus it is good with respect to the making that it does. In all other respects, however, it is not good. It is subject to passion and subject to motion, and a maker of things subject to passion. With reference to humanity, one uses the term good in comparison to evil. Here below, the evil that is not excessive is the good, and the good is the least amount of evil here below. The good cannot be cleansed of vice here below, for the good is spoiled by evil here below, and once spoiled, it no longer remains good. Since it does not remain so, it becomes evil. The good is in God alone, then, or God himself is the good. Therefore, Asclepius, only the name of the good exists among mankind, never the fact. It cannot exist here. Material body, squeezed on all sides by vice, sufferings, pains, longings, angry feelings, delusions, and mindless opinions, has no room for the good. And this is the worst of all, Asclepius. Here below, they believe in each of the things I have just mentioned as the greatest good, when actually it is insuperable evil. Gluttony is the supplier of all evils. Error is the absence of the good here below. As for me, I give thanks to God for what he has put in my mind, even to know of the good that it is impossible for it to exist in the cosmos. For the cosmos is a plenitude of vice, as God is a plenitude of the good, or the good of God. If indeed there are things preeminently beautiful near to God's essence, those seem perhaps even cleaner and purer in some degree, which are part of him. One dares to say, Asclepius, that God's essence, if in fact he has an essence, is the beautiful, but that the beautiful and the good are not to be detected in any of the things in the cosmos. All the things that are subject to the sight of the eyes are as phantoms and shadowy illusions, but those not subject to it, especially the essence of the beautiful and the good, as the eye cannot see God, neither can it see the beautiful and the good, for they are integral parts of God alone, properties of God, peculiar to him, inseparable, most beloved. Either God loves them, or they love God. If you can understand God, you will understand the beautiful and good, the exceedingly bright, whose brightness God surpasses. For this is incomparable beauty and inimitable good, as is God himself. As you understand God, then, also understand the beautiful and the good. Because they are not separated from God, these have nothing in common with other living things. If you ask about God, you ask also about the beautiful. Only one road travels from here to the beautiful, reverence combined with knowledge. Hence, those who remain in ignorance and do not travel the road of reverence dare to say that mankind is beautiful and good, but a human cannot see nor even dream of what the good might be. Mankind has been overrun by every evil, and he believes that evil is good. Therefore, he uses evil the more insatiably and fears being deprived of it, striving with all his might not only to possess it, but even to increase it. Such, Asclepius, are the good and the beautiful for humans, things we can neither shun nor hate. Hardest of all to bear is that we have need of them and cannot live without them. 7. That the greatest evil in mankind is ignorance concerning God. Where are you heading in your drunkenness, you people? Have you swallowed the doctrine of ignorance undiluted, vomiting it up already because you cannot hold it? Stop and sober yourselves up. Look up with the eyes of the heart. If not all of you, at least those of you who have the power. The vice of ignorance floods the whole earth and utterly destroys the soul shut up in the body, preventing it from anchoring in the havens of deliverance. Surely you will not sink in this great flood. Those of you who can will take the ebb and gain the haven of deliverance and anchor there. Then seek a guide to take you by the hand and lead you to the portals of knowledge. There shines the light cleansed of darkness. There no one is drunk. All are sober and gaze with the heart toward one who wishes to be seen, who is neither heard nor spoken of, who is seen not with the eyes, but with mind and heart. But first you must rip off the tunic that you wear, the garment of ignorance, the foundation of vice, the bonds of corruption, the dark cage, the living death, the sentient corpse, the portable tomb, the resident thief, the one who hates through what he loves and envies through what he hates. Such is the odious tunic you have put on. It strangles you and drags you down with it, so that you will not hate its viciousness, not look up and see the fair vision of truth and the good that lies within, not understand the plot that it has plotted against you when it made insensible the organs of sense, made them inapparent and unrecognized for what they are, blocked up with a great load of matter and jammed full of low. Speak about soul and body and say in what way the soul is immortal and whence comes the energy that composes and dissolves the body. Death actually has nothing to do with this. Death is a notion that arises from the term immortal. Either it is an empty usage, or through the loss of the first syllable, immortal is taken to mean mortal. Death has to do with destruction, yet none of the things in the cosmos is destroyed. If the cosmos is a second God and an immortal living thing, it is impossible for any part of this immortal living thing to die. All things in the cosmos are parts of the cosmos, but especially mankind, the living thing that reasons. God is in reality the first of all entities, eternal, unbegotten, craftsman of the whole of existence. But by his agency, a second God came to be in his image, and by him this second God is sustained, nurtured, and immortalized as from an eternal Father, ever living because he is immortal. In fact, the ever-living differs from the eternal. God did not come to be by another's agency, and if he came to be, it was by his own agency. He never came to be, however. He comes to be always. This is the eternal being through whom the universe is eternal, the Father who is eternal because he exists through himself. But the cosmos became ever-living and immortal from an eternal Father, and the Father took the matter that he desired to set aside and made it all into a spherical form with body and bulk. The matter that he invested with this spherical quality is immortal, and its materiality is eternal. Further, the Father implanted in the sphere the qualities of forms, shutting them up as in a cave. He wanted to adorn what comes after him with every quality, to surround the whole body with immortality so that even matter, tending to separate from the composition of this body, would not dissolve into its typical disorder. When matter was without body, my child, it was without order. Especially here below, matter has the disorder confined to the other lesser things that have qualities, the property of increase and decrease that humans call death. But this disorder arises among things that live on earth. The bodies of heavenly beings have a single order that they got from the Father in the beginning, and this order is kept undissolved by the recurrence of each of them. The recurrence of earthly bodies, by contrast, is the dissolution of their composition, and this dissolution causes them to recur as undissolved bodies, immortal in other words. Thus arises a loss of awareness, but not a destruction of bodies. According to the Father's will, and unlike other living things on earth, mankind, the third living thing, came to be in the image of the cosmos, possessing mind as well as a relation not only of sympathy with the second God, but also of thought with the first God. For they have perception of the former God as of a body, but they take thought of the latter as of a mind without body, as of the good. Does this living thing not perish then? Hold your tongue, my child, and understand what God is, what the cosmos is, what an immortal living thing is, what a dissoluble living thing is, and understand that the cosmos was made by God and is in God, but that mankind was made by the cosmos and is in the cosmos. Understand that God begins, contains, and composes all things. 9. On understanding and sensation, that the beautiful and good are in God alone and nowhere else. Yesterday, Asclepius, I delivered the perfect discourse, and now I think that it needs a sequel, an exposition of the discourse on sensation. Apparently, there is a difference between sensation and understanding, the former being material and the latter essential. To me, however, the two appear to be combined, not separate. In humans, I mean. For in other living things, sensation is combined with the natural character, but in humans, understanding is combined with it as well. Mind differs from understanding as much as God differs from divinity. Divinity comes to be by God's agency, understanding by the agency of mind. Understanding is the sister of reasoned speech, or each is the other's instrument. There is no utterance of reasoned speech without understanding, nor is there evidence of understanding without reasoned speech. Both sensation and understanding flow together into humans, intertwined with one another, as it were. For without sensation, it is impossible to understand, and without understanding, it is impossible to have sensation. Can understanding be understood without sensation, however, in the way that one pictures images when dreaming? It seems to me that in dream vision, both these faculties have been eliminated. Although, when sleepers awake, understanding and sensation are always combined. At any rate, sensation is distributed to body and to soul, and when both these parts of sensation are in harmony with one another, then there is an utterance of understanding, engendered by mind. Mind conceives every mental product, both the good, when mind receives seeds from God, as well as the contrary kind, when the seeds come from some demonic being. Unless it is illuminated by God, no part of the cosmos is without a demon that steals into the mind to sow the seed of its own energy. And what has been sown, the mind conceives. Adulteries, murders, assaults on one's father, acts of sacrilege and irreverence, suicides by hanging or falling from a cliff, and all other such works of demons. Few seeds come from God, but they are potent and beautiful and good. Virtue, moderation, and reverence. Reverence is knowledge of God, and one who has come to know God, filled with all good things, has thoughts that are divine, and not like those of the multitude. This is why those who are in knowledge do not please the multitude, nor does the multitude please them. They appear to be mad, and they bring ridicule on themselves. They are hated and scorned, and perhaps they may even be murdered. As I have said, vice must dwell here below, since this is its native land. The earth is its native land, not the cosmos, as some will blasphemously claim. The God-fearing person, at least, will withstand all this, because he is aware of knowledge. For all things are good to such a person, even things that others find evil. If they lay plots against him, he refers it all to knowledge, and he alone makes evil into good. I return again to the discourse on sensation. For sensation to have a share in understanding is human, but as I said before, not every person enjoys understanding. One will be a material, another an essential person. As I mentioned, material people surrounded by vice get the seed of their understanding from the demons, but God saves those who, in their essence, are surrounded by good. God, craftsman of all things, makes all things like himself in crafting them. But these things that begin as good come to differ in their use of energy. The motion of the cosmos, as it grinds away, produces generations of different kinds. Some it soils with vice, others it cleanses with the good. For the cosmos has its own sensation and understanding, Asclepius, not like the human, not diverse, but far stronger and simpler. The sole sensation and understanding in the cosmos is to make all things, and unmake them into itself again, an instrument of God's will. In reality, God made the instrument to make all things actively in itself, taking under its protection the seeds it has received from God. In dissolving all things, the cosmos renews them, and when things have been dissolved in this way, the cosmos, like life's good farmer, offers them renewal through the same process of change that moves the cosmos. There is nothing that is not a product of the cosmic fecundity. In moving, it makes all things live, and it is at once the location and the craftsman of life. All bodies come from matter, but in different ways. Some come from earth, some from water, some from air, and some from fire. All are composite bodies, some of them more strongly so, and some are simpler. The more strongly composite are the heavier bodies, those less so are the lighter. The rapid motion of the cosmos produces diversity in causing generations of different kinds. When the cosmos breathes most frequently, it offers qualities to bodies, and their plenitude is one thing only: life. Thus God is father of the cosmos, but the cosmos is father of the things in the cosmos. The cosmos is the son of God, and the things in the cosmos are made by the cosmos. It is rightly called cosmos, or arrangement, for it arranges all things in the diversity of generation, in the ceaselessness of life, in the tirelessness of activity, in the rapidity of necessity, in the associability of the elements, and in the order of things that come to be. That it should be called an arrangement, then, is necessary and fitting. Therefore, in all living things, sensation and understanding enter from outside, breathed into things by the atmosphere. But the cosmos got them once and for all when it came to be, and having got them, it keeps them by God's agency. God is not without sensation and understanding, though some would have it so, committing blasphemy in an excess of piety. For all things that exist are in God, Asclepius. They have come to be by God's agency, and they depend from on high, some of them acting through bodies, others moving through psychic substance, or making life through spirit, or taking in the spent remains, which is as it should be. Or rather, to let the truth be shown, I should say that God does not contain these things. He is all of them. So he does not acquire them as something added from outside, but gives them freely to the outside. And this is God's sensation and understanding, always moving everything. The time will never come when any of the things that are will be abandoned. When I speak of the things that are, I speak of God. For God holds within him the things that are. None are outside of him, and he is outside of none. If you are mindful, Asclepius, these things should seem true to you, but they will be beyond belief if you have no knowledge. To understand is to believe, and not to believe is not to understand. Reasoned discourse does not get to the truth, but mind is powerful, and when it has been guided by reason up to a point, it has the means to get as far as the truth. After mind had considered all this carefully and had discovered that all of it is in harmony with the discoveries of reason, it came to believe, and in this beautiful belief it found rest. By an act of God, then, those who have understood find what I have been saying believable, but those who have not understood do not find it believable. Let this much be told about understanding and sensation. 10. Discourse of Hermes Trismegistus, the key. Yesterday's discourse, Asclepius, I entrusted to you. It is right that I entrust today's to Tat, since it is a summary of the general discourses delivered to him. Therefore, O Tat, God the Father and the Good have the same nature, or rather activity. Nature is the term for growth and increase, which apply to things that change and move, while activity applies also to the unmoved, to the divine, that is, in which he himself wishes to include the human. Elsewhere we have taught about divine as well as human activities, which one must now understand in the same sense as on those other occasions. God's activity is will, and his essence is to will all things to be. For what are God the Father and the Good but the being of all things, and of things that are no longer, at least the very substance of their existence? This is God, this is the Father, this is the Good, to whom nothing else belongs. For the cosmos, as also the sun, is itself the father of things that exist by participation, but for living things it is not also, equally with God, the cause of the good, nor of life. But if it is the cause, it is in any event entirely constrained by the good will, without which nothing can be or come to be. The Father, receiving the appetite for the good by way of the Son, causes the begetting and rearing of his children, for the good is the principle of making. But the good can come to be in none other than him alone, who receives nothing, but wills all things to be. I will not say who makes Tat, for much of the time one who makes is wanting both in quality and quantity, in that sometimes he makes and sometimes not. Now he makes this kind and this many, now the opposite. But God the Father is the good, in that he wills all things to be. So it is then for one who can see. For God also wishes this seeing to happen, and it happens for him too, and chiefly, and all else happens because of it. For being recognized is characteristic of the good. This is the good, Tat. You have filled us with a vision, Father, which is good and very beautiful, and my mind's eye is almost blinded in such a vision. Yes, but the vision of the good is not like the ray of the sun, which, because it is fiery, dazzles the eyes with light and makes them shut. On the contrary, it illuminates to the extent that one capable of receiving the influence of intellectual splendor can receive it. It probes more sharply, but it does no harm, and it is full of all immortality. Those able to drink somewhat more deeply of the vision often fall asleep, moving out of the body toward a sight most fair, just as it happened to Uranus and Kronos, our ancestors. Would that we too could see it, Father. Indeed, my child, would that we could. But we are still too weak now for this sight. We are not yet strong enough to open our mind's eyes and look on the incorruptible, incomprehensible beauty of that good. In the moment when you have nothing to say about it, you will see it, for the knowledge of it is divine silence and suppression of all the senses. One who has understood it can understand nothing else, nor can one who has looked on it look on anything else or hear of anything else, nor can he move his body in any way. He stays still, all bodily senses and motions forgotten. Having illuminated all his mind, this beauty kindles his whole soul, and by means of body draws it upward, and beauty changes his whole person into essence. For when soul has looked on the beauty of the good, my child, it cannot be deified while in a human body. Deification, Father, what do you mean? The changes that belong to any separated soul, my son. What do you mean by separated? In the general discourses, did you not hear that all the souls whirled about in all the cosmos, portioned out, as it were, come from the one soul of the all? Many are the changes of these souls, then, some toward a happier lot, others the opposite. The snake-like change into water creatures, the watery change into things of dry land, the dry land souls change into winged things, the aerial into humans, and human beings, changing into demons, possess the beginning of immortality. And so then they enter the troop of gods, which is really two troops, one wandering, the other fixed. And this is soul's most perfect glory. But if a soul that has entered into humans remains vicious, it neither tastes immortality nor shares in the good, but turns back and rushes down the road toward the snakes. And this is the sentence pronounced against a vicious soul. The vice of soul is ignorance. For the soul, when it is blind and discerns none of the things that are, nor their nature, nor the good, is shaken by the bodily passions, and the wretched thing becomes, in ignorance of itself, a slave to vile and monstrous bodies, bearing the body like a burden, not ruling, but being ruled. This is the vice of soul. The virtue of soul, by contrast, is knowledge, for one who knows is good and reverent, and already divine. Who is this person, Father? One who says little and hears little. He fights with shadows, my son, who wastes time on talking and listening to talk. One neither speaks nor hears of God the Father and the good. This being so, that there are senses in all things that are, because they cannot exist without them. Yet knowledge differs greatly from sensation, for sensation comes when the object prevails, while knowledge is the goal of learning, and learning is a gift from God. For all learning is incorporeal, using as instrument the mind itself, as mind uses body. Both enter into body then, the mental and the material. For everything must be the product of opposition and contrariety, and it cannot be otherwise. Who is this material God then? The cosmos, which is beautiful, but not good. For it is material and easily affected, and of all those things that feel affect, it is foremost. But among the things that are, it is secondary and incomplete in itself. Once it has come to be, it exists forever. But it exists in becoming and comes to be forever as the becoming of qualities and quantities. For it is subject to movement, and every motion of matter is becoming. The immobility of mind initiates the motion of matter in this way. Since the cosmos is a sphere, a head that is, and since there is nothing material above the head, just as there is nothing of mind below the feet, where all is matter, and since mind is a head which is moved spherically, in the manner of a head that is, things joined to the membrane of this head, in which is the soul, are by nature immortal, as if they have more soul than body, because body has been made in soul. Things far away from the membrane, however, are mortal, because they have more body than soul. Thus, every living being, and likewise the universe, has been constituted of the material and the mental. And the cosmos is first. But after the cosmos, the second living thing is the human, who is first of mortal beings, and like other living things, has ensoulment. Moreover, the human is not only not good, but because he is mortal, he is evil as well. For the cosmos is not good because it moves, yet because it is immortal, it is not evil. But the human, because he moves and is mortal, is evil. A human soul is carried in this way. The mind is in the reason is in the soul is in the spirit passing through veins and arteries and blood moves the living thing and, in a manner of speaking, bears it up. Some hold, therefore, that the soul is blood, mistaking its nature, and not seeing that the spirit must first be withdrawn into the soul, and then, when the blood thickens and the veins and arteries are emptied, this destroys the living thing, and this is the death of the body. All things depend from one beginning, but the beginning depends from the one and only, and the beginning moves so that it can again become a beginning. Only the one, however, stands still and does not move. There are these three, then: God the Father and the good, the cosmos, and the human. And God holds the cosmos, but the cosmos holds the human. And the cosmos becomes the son of God, but the human becomes the son of the cosmos, a grandson, as it were. For God does not ignore mankind. On the contrary, he recognizes him fully and wishes to be recognized. For mankind, this is the only deliverance, the knowledge of God. It is ascent to Olympus. A soul becomes good only in this way, though it is not good forever, but becomes evil. By necessity it becomes so. What do you mean, O Trismegistus? Envision the soul of a child, my son, which has not yet accepted its separation from itself. Its body has not yet attained its full bulk, of which it has only a little as yet. How beautiful it is to look at, from every point of view, not yet sullied by the passions of the body. The same thing also happens to those who leave the body. When the soul rises up to itself, the spirit is drawn into the blood, the soul into the spirit. But the mind, since it is divine by nature, becomes purified of its garments and takes on a fiery body, ranging about everywhere, leaving the soul to judgment and the justice it deserves. What do you mean, Father? How is mind parted from soul, and soul from spirit, when you say that soul is the garment of the mind, and spirit the garment of the soul? The hearer must be of one mind with the speaker, my son, and of one spirit as well. He must have hearing quicker than the speech of the speaker. In an earthy body occurs the combining of these garments, my son, for the mind cannot seat itself alone and naked in an earthy body. The earthy body cannot support so great an immortality, nor can so great a dignity endure defiling contact with a body subject to passion. Mind, therefore, has taken the soul as a shroud, and the soul, which is itself something divine, uses the spirit as a sort of armoring servant. The spirit governs the living being. Then, when the mind has got free of the earthy body, it immediately puts on its own tunic, a tunic of fire, in which it could not stay when in the earthy body. For earth cannot bear fire. The whole thing burns even from a little spark. This is why water has spread all around the earth, guarding like a fence or a wall against the burning of the fire. Mind, which is the most penetrating of all the divine thoughts, has for its body fire, the most penetrating of all the elements. And since mind is the craftsman of all beings, It uses fire as an instrument in its craftwork. The mind of all is the craftsman of all beings. The human mind is the craftsman only of the things that exist on earth. Since it is stripped of fire, the mind in humans is powerless to craft divine things because it is human in its habitation. The human soul, not every soul that is, but only the reverent, is in a sense demonic and divine. Such a soul becomes holy mind after getting free of the body and fighting the fight of reverence. Knowing the divine and doing wrong to no person is the fight of reverence. The irreverent soul, however, stays in its own essence, punishing itself, seeking an earthy body to enter, a human body to be sure. For no other body contains a human soul. It is not allowed for a human soul to fall down into the body of an unreasoning animal. This is God's law, to protect the human soul against such an outrage. How then, Father, is a human soul punished? What greater punishment for a human soul, my son, than irreverence? What fire burns as much as irreverence? What beast maims the body so ravenously as irreverence maims the very soul? Do you not see what tortures the irreverent soul suffers, howling and shrieking, "I'm on fire, I'm burning, I don't know what to say or do. I'm eaten up, poor wretch, by the evils that possess me. I neither see nor hear." Are these not the cries of a soul being punished? Do you too believe what they all think, my son, that the soul which has left the body becomes an animal? This is a great error, for the soul is punished in this way. The mind, once it has become a demon, is directed to acquire a fiery body in order to serve God, and having entered into the most irreverent soul, mind afflicts that soul with scourges of wrongdoing. Thus scourged, the irreverent soul takes to murders and outrages and slanders and the diverse kinds of violence by which people do wrong. But when mind has entered a reverent soul, it leads it to the light of knowledge. Such a soul as this never has its fill of hymning and praising, always blessing all people and doing them good in every deed and word, in memory of its Father. Therefore, my child, one who gives thanks to God must pray to acquire a good mind. The soul can then pass over into something greater, but not into any lesser thing. There is a community of souls. The souls of the gods commune with souls of humans, those of humans with souls of unreasoning things. The greater take charge of the lesser, gods of humans, humans of living things without reason, and God takes charge of them all. For he is greater than all of them, and all are less than he. Thus the cosmos is subject to God, mankind to the cosmos, and unreasoning things to mankind. God stands above all things and watches over them. And energies are like rays from God, natural forces like rays from the cosmos, arts and learning like rays from mankind. Energies work through the cosmos and upon mankind through the natural rays of the cosmos. But natural forces work through the elements, and humans work through the arts and through learning. And this is the government of the universe, dependent from the nature of the one and spreading through the one mind. Nothing is more godlike than mind, nothing more active nor more capable of uniting humans to the gods and gods to humans. Mind is the good demon. Blessed is the soul completely full of mind, wretched the soul completely empty of it. Again, my father, what do you mean? Do you suppose, my child, that every soul possesses the good mind? Our present discourse concerns this mind. not the servile mind of which we spoke earlier, the one sent below by justice. For without mind, soul can neither say nor accomplish anything. Mind often flies out of soul,
You got a double.
and in that hour soul neither sees nor hears, but acts like an animal without reason. So great is the power of mind. But in a sluggish soul, mind cannot endure. It leaves such a soul behind as clinging to the body, held down and smothered by it. Such a soul, my child, does not possess mind, and so one must not say that such a thing is human. For the human is a godlike living thing, not comparable to the other living things of the earth, but to those in heaven above, who are called gods. Or better, if one dare tell the truth, the one who is really human is above these gods as well, or at least they are wholly equal in power to one another. For none of the heavenly gods will go down to earth, leaving behind the bounds of heaven. Yet the human rises up to heaven and takes its measure and knows what is in its heights and its depths. And he understands all else exactly, and, greater than all of this, he comes to be on high without leaving earth behind. So enormous is his range. Therefore, we must dare to say that the human on earth is a mortal God, but that God in heaven is an immortal human. Through these two, then, cosmos and human, all things exist, but they all exist by action of the one. 11. Mind to Hermes. Since people have said many contradictory things of all sorts about the universe and God, I have not learned the truth. Make the truth plain to me, Master. It is you alone on whom I may depend to reveal it. Mark my words, then, Hermes Trismegistus, and remember what I say. I will not hesitate to speak what occurs to me. Hear how it is with God and the universe, my child. God, eternity, cosmos, time, becoming. God makes eternity. Eternity makes the cosmos makes time. Time makes becoming. The essence, so to speak, of God is the good, the beautiful, happiness, wisdom. The essence of eternity is identity, of the cosmos, order, of time, change, of becoming, life and death. But the energy of God is mind and soul. The energy of eternity is permanence and immortality. Of the cosmos, recurrence and counter-recurrence. Of time, increase and decrease. Of becoming, quality and quantity. Eternity, therefore, is in God, the cosmos in eternity, time in the cosmos, and becoming in time. And while eternity has stood still in God's presence, the cosmos moves in eternity. Time passes in the cosmos, but becoming comes to be in time. The source of all things is God. Eternity is their essence. The cosmos is their matter. Eternity is the power of God, and the cosmos is eternity's work. But the cosmos has never come into being. It comes to be forever from eternity. Therefore, nothing in the cosmos will ever be corrupted, for eternity is incorruptible. Nor will it pass away, since eternity encloses the cosmos. But the wisdom of God, what is it? The good and the beautiful and happiness and all excellence and eternity. Eternity establishes an order, putting immortality and permanence into matter. The becoming of that matter depends from eternity, just as eternity depends from God. Becoming and time, whose natures are twofold, exist in heaven and on earth. In heaven they are changeless and incorruptible, but on earth they change and become corrupt. And God is the soul of eternity. Eternity is the soul of the cosmos. Heaven is the soul of earth. is in mind, but mind is in soul, and soul is in matter. Yet all these exist through eternity. Inwardly, a soul full of mind and God fills this universal body in which all bodies exist. But outwardly, soul surrounds the universe and brings it to life. Outwardly, the universe is this great and perfect living thing, the cosmos. Inwardly, it is all living things. Above in heaven, soul persists in its identity, but on earth below, it changes what it comes to be. Eternity holds all this together, either through necessity or providence or nature or whatever else anyone believes or will believe. This universe is God producing his energy, but God's energy is an insuperable power, not comparable to anything human or divine. Therefore, Hermes, you should not suppose that anything below or anything above is like God, since you would stray from the truth. Nothing is like the unlike, the one and the only. Nor should you suppose that God gives up his power to anyone else. Besides him, is there any maker of life and immortality and change? What else might he do but make? God is not idle, else everything would be idle, for each and everything is full of God. Nowhere in the cosmos, nor in any other thing is there idleness. Said of the one who makes, or of one who comes into being, idleness is an empty word. Everything must come to be, always and according to the inclination of each place. The one who makes exists in all things, not firmly fixed or making in any particular thing, but making all things. Because he is an energetic power, his autonomy does not come from things that come to be. Those that come to be exist by his agency. Through me, look out on the cosmos set before your gaze and observe its beauty carefully. A body undefiled, than which nothing is more ancient, always in its prime and young, and yet even more in its prime. And see the 7 worlds spread out below, marshaled in eternal order, each completing eternity in a different circuit. See how everything is full of light, yet nowhere is there fire. The attracting and combining among things contrary and unlike became light shining down from the energy of the God who is Father of all good, ruler and commander of the whole order of the 7 worlds. Coursing ahead of them all is the moon, nature's instrument, transforming the matter below. And in the midst of the universe is the earth, the nurse who feeds terrestrial creatures,
Wow.
settled in the beautiful cosmos like sediment. Look at the multitude, how great it is, of immortal living beings and of the mortal, and in between the two, the immortal and the mortal, the circling moon. All things are full of soul, and all are moved, some around heaven, others about the earth. Those on the right do not go left, those on the left do not go right. Those above do not go below, nor do those below go above. That all of them have come to be, dearest Hermes, you no longer need to learn from me. For they are bodies, and they have a soul, and they are moved. But body and soul cannot join in a single being without someone to bring them together. Such a one must exist then, and must be one in all respects. Since motions are many and diverse, and bodies are dissimilar, while one speed has been ordained for all of them, there cannot be 2 makers or more than 2. If there are many, one order cannot be kept. The consequence of plurality is envy of the better. I will explain. If there were a second maker of living things mortal and subject to change, he would long to make immortal beings as well, as the maker of immortals would wish to make mortals. Look, if there are 2, and if matter is one and soul is one, which of them will supply the making? Or if both supply it, which has the greater part? Think of it this way. Every living body, both immortal and mortal, reasoning and unreasoning, is composed of matter and soul. For all living bodies are ensouled. The non-living, on the other hand, consist of matter by itself. Soul, likewise coming by itself from the Maker, is the cause of life, but the one who makes the immortals causes all life. How then is he not also the maker of the immortal living things that differ from the immortals? How can an immortal being who makes immortality not make what is possessed by living things? Clearly there is someone who makes these things, and quite evidently he is one. For soul is one, life is one, and matter is one. But who is this someone? Who else but the one God? To whom, if not to God alone, might it belong to make ensouled living beings? God is one, then. How entirely absurd! Since you have agreed that the cosmos is always one, that the sun is one, the moon one, and divinity one, do you propose to number God himself among them? God makes everything. In a God who is many, you have the ultimate absurdity. And why is it a great accomplishment for God to make life and soul and immortality and change when you yourself make so many such things? You see and you speak and you hear. You smell and touch and walk about and think and breathe. It is not as if one sees, another hears, another speaks, and someone else touches, someone else smells, walks about, thinks and breathes. One person does all these things. In another sense, things on high cannot happen without God. Just as you are no longer a living being if you are idle at your affairs, so if God is idle, he is no longer God, though it is not right to say so. If it has been proven that you cannot be without making something, how much truer is this of God? For if there is something that God does not make, he is imperfect, though it is not right to say so. But if God is perfect and not idle, then he makes everything. Give me just a moment, Hermes, and you shall quickly understand that God's work is one thing only: to bring all into being. Those that are coming to be, those that have once come to be, those that shall come to be. This is life, my dearest friend. This is the beautiful. This is the good. This is God. If you want to understand it from experience, notice what happens to you when you wish to beget. It is not like the work of God. God takes no pleasure in his work, nor does he have assistance in it. Working alone, he is in his work eternally, since he is what he makes. If they were parted from it, all things would collapse. Of necessity, all would die, since there would be no life. But if all are alive, and life is also one, then God too is one. Again, if all things are alive, those in heaven and also those on earth, and if life is one for all of them, it comes to be by God's agency, and it is God. All things come to be by the agency of God, then, and life is the union of mind and soul. Eternity, therefore, is an image of God. The cosmos is an image of eternity, and the sun is an image of the cosmos. The human is an image of the sun. Death is not the destruction of things that have been combined, but the dissolution of their union. They say that change is death, because the body is dissolved and life passes on to the unseen. Hear me devoutly, my dearest Hermes, when I say that the cosmos and the things said to be dissolved in this manner are changed because each day a part of the cosmos becomes unseen. but they are by no means dissolved. These are the passions of the cosmos, swirlings and concealments. The swirling is a return, and the concealment a renewal. The cosmos is omniform. It does not have forms inserted in it, but changes them within itself. Since the cosmos came to be as omniform, who can have made it? Let us not call him formless. But if he too is omniform, he will be like the cosmos. What if he has one form? In this respect, he will be less than the cosmos. What do we say he is then, so as not to bring our discourse to an impasse? For there can be no impasse in our understanding of God. Therefore, if he has any structure in him, it is one structure, incorporeal, that does not yield to appearances. And he reveals all structures through bodies. Do not be surprised at the notion of an incorporeal structure, for it is like the structure of a word. Mountain ridges seem to stand out high in pictures, but in reality they are absolutely smooth and even. Be mindful of what I am saying, something rather daring, but also quite true. Just as a human cannot live apart from life, neither can God exist without making the good. For in God this making is life and movement, as it were, moving all things and making them live. Some things that I say need special attention. Consider what I am saying now. All things are in God, but not as lying in a place, for place is also body, and body is immobile, and what is lying somewhere has no movement. In incorporeal imagination, things are located differently. Consider what encompasses all things, that nothing bounds the incorporeal, that nothing is quicker nor more powerful. Of all things, the incorporeal is the unbounded, the quickest and most powerful. Consider this for yourself. Command your soul to travel to India, and it will be there faster than your command. Command it to cross over to the ocean, and again it will quickly be there, not as having passed from place to place, but simply as being there. Command it even to fly up to heaven, and it will not lack wings. Nothing will hinder it, not the fire of the sun, nor the ether, nor the swirl, nor the bodies of the other stars. Cutting through them all, it will fly to the utmost body. But if you wish to break through the universe itself and look upon the things outside, if indeed there is anything outside the cosmos, it is within your power. See what power you have, what quickness. If you can do these things, can God not do them? So you must think of God in this way, as having everything, the cosmos, himself, the universe, like thoughts within himself. Thus, unless you make yourself equal to God, you cannot understand God. Like is understood by like. Make yourself grow to immeasurable immensity, outleap all body, outstrip all time, become eternity, and you will understand God. Having conceived that nothing is impossible to you, consider yourself immortal and able to understand everything, all art, all learning, the temper of every living thing. Go higher than every height and lower than every depth. Collect in yourself all the sensations of what has been made, of fire and water, dry and wet. Be everywhere at once, on land, in the sea, in heaven. Be not yet born, be in the womb, be young, old, dead, beyond death. And when you have understood all these at once, times, places, things, qualities, quantities, then you can understand God. But if you shut your soul up in the body and abase it and say, I understand nothing, I can do nothing, I fear the sea, I cannot go up to heaven, I do not know what I was, I do not know what I will be. Then what have you to do with God? While you are evil and a lover of the body, you can understand none of the things that are beautiful and good. To be ignorant of the divine is the ultimate vice, but to be able to know, to will, and to hope is the straight and easy way leading to the good. As you journey, the good will meet you everywhere and will be seen everywhere, where and when you least expect it, as you lie awake, as you fall asleep, sailing or walking by night or by day, as you speak or keep silent, for there is nothing that it is not. And do you say, God is unseen? Hold your tongue. Who is more visible than God? This is why he made all things, so that through them all you might look on him. This is the goodness of God. This is his excellence, that he is visible through all things. For nothing is unseen, not even among the incorporeals. Mind is seen in the act of understanding, God in the act of making. Up to this point, O Trismegistus, these matters have been revealed to you. Consider all the rest in the same way, on your own, and you will not be deceived. 12. Discourse of Hermes Trismegistus on the mind shared in common to Tat. Mind, O Tat, comes from the very essence of God, if in fact God has any essence, and God alone knows exactly what that essence might be. Mind, then, has not been cut off from God's essentiality. It has expanded, as it were, like the light of the sun. In humans, this mind is God. Among humans, therefore, some are gods, and their humanity is near to divinity. For the good demon has said that gods are immortal humans, and humans are mortal gods. In animals without reason, however, there is natural impulse. Where soul is, there also is mind, just as there is soul wherever life is. But the soul in unreasoning animals is life devoid of mind. Mind is a benefactor of human souls. It works on them for good. In things without reason, mind assists the natural impulse arising from each, but it opposes this impulse in human souls. Every soul, as soon as it has come to be in the body, is depraved by pain and pleasure.
I'm so tired.
For in a composite body, pain and pleasure seethe like juices. Once immersed in them, the soul drowns. Mind displays its own splendor to those souls that it commands, and it opposes their predilections. As a good physician, using the cautery and the knife, causes pain to the body overtaken by disease, in the same way, mind causes pain to the soul, withdrawing it from the pleasure that gives rise to every disease of the soul. A great disease of the soul is godlessness, and next is mere opinion. From them follow all evils and nothing good. Therefore, the mind that opposes this disease secures good for the soul, just as the physician secures health for the body. But those human souls that do not have mind as a guide are affected in the same way as souls of animals without reason. When mind connives with them and gives way to longings, the rush of appetite drives such souls to the longings that lead to unreason, and like animals without reason, they never cease their irrational anger and irrational longing, and they have never had enough of evil. For angers and longings are irrational vices that exceed all limits. God has imposed the law upon these souls as a torment and a reproof. In that case, Father, the discourse about fate that I heard finished earlier would seem to be contradicted. If it is absolutely fated for some individual to commit adultery or sacrilege or to do some other evil, How is such a person still to be punished when he has acted under compulsion of fate? Everything is an act of fate, my child, and outside of it nothing exists among bodily entities. Neither good nor evil comes to be by chance. Even one who has done something fine is fated to be affected by it, and this is why he does it, in order to be affected by what affects him, because he has done it. Now is not the time for a discourse about vice or fate. We have spoken on these topics elsewhere. Now our discourse is about mind, what mind can do, and how it admits of differences. In humans, mind is one thing, but it is another in unreasoning animals. Moreover, in other living things, mind is not beneficent. As it quells anger and longing, it acts differently in each individual, and one must understand that some of these are men who possess reason, and that others are without it. But all people are subject to fate, and also to birth and change, which are the beginning and the end of fate. And what is fated affects all people. Yet those who possess reason, whom, as we have said, mind commands, are not affected as the others are. Since they have been freed from vice, they are not affected as a consequence of being evil. Again, Father, what do you mean? The adulterer is not evil? The murderer not evil? And all the rest of them? One who has reason will not be affected because he has committed adultery, my child, but as if he had done so. Nor will he be affected because he has murdered, but as if he had murdered. It is not possible to escape the quality of change any more than of birth, though it is possible for one who has mind to escape vice. Thus I have always heard the good demon say, it would have been most useful to humankind if he had given it out in writing. He alone, my child, because he looked down on everything as the firstborn God, has truly given voice to divine discourses. Once, at any rate, I heard him say that all things are one, especially the intellectual bodies, that we live in power and in energy and in eternity. Also that the mind of eternity is good, and that its soul is good as well. This being so, there is nothing dimensional among intellectual beings, and thus, since mind rules all and is the soul of God, mind can do as it wishes. You must understand, then, and apply this discourse to the question that you asked me before, the one about fate and mind, I mean. For if you carefully avoid contentious discourse, my child, you will find that mind, the soul of God, truly prevails over all, over fate and law and all else. And nothing is impossible for mind, neither setting a human soul above fate, nor, if it happens that a soul is careless, setting it beneath fate. These were the finest things that the good demon said about such matters. Divinely said, my father, and truly and usefully. But make it even plainer to me. You have said that mind acts in the manner of a natural impulse in animals without reason, conniving with their instincts. But the instincts of unreasoning animals are passions, I believe. If mind assists the instincts, and instincts are passions, is mind also a passion, since it is in defiling contact with passions? Well said, child. An excellent question, and one I ought to answer. All embodied incorporeals are affected by passions, my child, and passions they are rightly called. Every mover is incorporeal, but not everything moved is body. Incorporeals are also moved by mind. Movement is passion, however, and so both are affected, the mover and the moved, one ruling, the other ruled. If there is release from the body, there is also release from passion. Yet one might better say that nothing is free from passion, my child, and that everything is affected by it. But there is a difference between passion and what is affected by passion. One is active and the other passive. Even bodies act of themselves, however. They are either unmoved or moved, and here is passion in either case. The incorporeals are always acted upon, which is why they are affected by passion. Do not let this terminology disturb you. Action and passion are identical, but it does no harm to use the more auspicious name. You have delivered the discourse very plainly, Father. Notice this also, my child, that to mankind, but not to any other mortal animal, God has granted these two things, mind and reasoned speech, which are worth as much as immortality. Mankind also has the speech that he utters. If one uses these gifts as he should, nothing will distinguish him from the immortals. Instead, when he has left the body, both these gifts will guide him to the troop of the gods and the blessed. The other living things, my father, do they not use speech? No, child, they use only voice, and speech differs greatly from voice. Speech is common to all people, but each kind of living thing has its own voice. Even among humans, my father, does speech not differ for each nation? It is different, my child, but humanity is one. Therefore, speech is also one, and when translated, it is found to be the same in Egypt and Persia as in Greece. My child, you seem to me to be ignorant of the excellence and importance of speech. The blessed God, the good demon, has said that soul is in body, that mind is in soul, that reasoned speech is in mind, and that God is their Father. Reasoned speech, then, is the image and mind of God, as the body is the image of the idea, and the idea is the image of the soul. Thus, the finest of matter is air, the finest air is soul, the finest soul is mind, and the finest mind is God. And God surrounds everything and permeates everything, while mind surrounds soul, soul surrounds air, and air surrounds matter. Necessity, providence, and nature are instruments of the cosmos and of the order of matter. Each of the intellectual beings is an essence, and their essence is identity, but each of the bodies in the universe is multiple. Since composite bodies have their identity in always causing one body to change to another, they preserve the incorruptibility of identity. Otherwise, for all composite bodies, there is a number belonging to each. For without number, neither association, nor composition, nor dissolution can occur. The Henads give birth to number, increase it, and take it back to themselves after it has been dissolved, and yet the matter is one. This entire cosmos, a great God and an image of a greater united with God and helping preserve the Father's will and order, is a plenitude of life. And throughout the whole recurrence of eternity that comes from the Father, there is nothing in the cosmos that does not live, neither in the whole of it nor in its parts. For there never was any dead thing in the cosmos, nor is there, nor will there be. The Father wished it to be alive as long as it holds together, and so it was necessary for the cosmos to be God. How then, my child, can there be dead things in God, in the image of all, in the plenitude of life? For deadness is corruption, and corruption is destruction. How can any part of the incorruptible be corrupted, or anything of God be destroyed? The things that live in the cosmos, Father, though they are parts of it, do they not die? Hold your tongue, child. The terminology of becoming leads you astray. They do not die, my child. As composite bodies, they are only dissolved. Dissolution is not death, but the dissolution of an alloy. They are dissolved, not to be destroyed, but to become new. And what is the energy of life? Is it not motion? In the cosmos, then, what is motionless? Nothing, my child. Does the earth not seem motionless to you, Father? No, child. It is the only thing that is full of motion and also stationary. Would it not be quite absurd if the nurse of all were motionless, she who begets everything and gives birth to it? For without motion, the begetter cannot beget anything. It is most absurd of you to ask if the fourth part is idle. That a body is motionless can signify nothing but being idle. Therefore, my child, you should know that everywhere in the cosmos, everything is moved, either by decrease or by increase. What is moved also lives, but not everything that lives needs stay the same. Taken as a whole, my child, the entire cosmos is free from change, but its parts are all subject to change. Nothing, however, is corruptible or destroyed, terms that disturb human beings. Life is not birth, but awareness, and change is forgetting, not death. Since this is so, all are immortal. Matter, life, spirit, soul, mind, of which every living thing is constituted. Through mind, then, every living thing is immortal, but most of all mankind, who is capable of receiving God and fit to keep company with him. With this living thing alone does God converse, at night through dreams and through omens by day, and through all of them he foretells the future, through birds, through entrails, through inspiration, through the oak tree, whereby mankind also professes to know what has been, what is at hand, and what will be. And notice this, my child, that each living thing frequents one part of the cosmos. Water for those that live in the water, earth for those that dwell on land, air for those that float above. But mankind uses them all: earth, water, air, fire. He even sees heaven, which he grasps by sensing it. And God, who is energy and power, surrounds everything and permeates everything, and understanding of God is nothing difficult, my child. If you wish also to gaze upon him, look at the order of the cosmos and the careful arrangement of this order. Look at the necessity of the heavenly phenomena and the providence in what has come to be and what comes to be. Look at matter, completely full of life, and a great God moving along with all beings good and fair, gods and demons and humans. But these are energies, Father. If they are entirely energies, my child, by whom are they energized? By anyone other than God? Or do you not know